Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to this presentation on competition and expedition preparation. We're going to start off with threat and error management, like any good flight. This presentation may be dry but tedious, so try not to fall asleep. You may feel the urge to ask questions, and that's great, so please put your hand up and wait for the microphone to come to you. Please speak loudly and clearly. Others may be resting their eyelids right about you. We want to keep them awake too. There's no need to take notes because this will be published after the event. It will be made available online in the very near future. So we're going to spend most of the time on competition preparation, apart from things like oxygen and oxygen equipment. Expedition preparation is really similar to competition preparation. So here's the dream, and here's reality. It's not like this all the time. Okay. But you may go to competition and the weather might be good, but not good enough to launch the competition grid. So you end up grid squatting. But that's just reality. So the aims of this presentation: to give an insight into the preparation required for a competition, because you're going to be going into this kind of environment where you've got a lot of gliders all flying from the one airfields, and prior to the start line opening, they're all going to be in the same airspace. So competition dates. The 2023 dates have already been published on the VGA and club websites. So you need to select a competition where you are likely to achieve something by way of personal goals, taking into account the glider you'll be flying. So choose your comp, complete an entry form, and get it sent in with your deposit. And finally, here's a link to the British Gliding Association competition list. So by now, we're into early January, you should have your competition admin well underway. So at your annual leave, make sure it's booked to coincide with the competition of your choice. Check your competition license if you have one. If you don't, get one. You must be in possession of an FEI license before entering any VGA rated comp. And the licenses can be obtained in a number of ways. You can apply online. And if you've previously held an FEI license but not renewed it recently, then you need to contact the VGA office first. And one of the office staff will make sure that the details are entered within e-services and it's renewed, and then you can actually log in to e-services and renew your competition license. And of course, if you're going to be flying a national competition, or national championships, your FAI license can be renewed at the same time. It's just a little bit more on the competition license. Here's an extract from the VGA competition handbook, which just states that all pilots, including those flying alongside the competition, require a valid competition license. The only exception is for E2s and two-seaters. And of course, the other thing is you must hold a silver badge to be able to apply for a competition license. So, moving on, you'll need a glider.
Got their own glider, well, that's fine. If you're in a syndicate, perhaps it's a good idea to arrange amongst your syndicate what competitions you're going to fly, and if you both want to fly the same competition, who gets priority. And one way of doing that is to look at the competition ratings. So if you've got a pilot who's rated and a pilot who isn't, it might be that the pilot who isn't gets first choice, so that they've got a chance to get themselves rated. But that's a matter for individual syndicates to discuss. You may like to borrow or hire a glider from an individual or a club. Be careful here. Okay? You need to make sure you've got a written agreement that's been drafted up and signed to say what you're going to actually do in the event that something happens. So exercise due diligence when you're doing the takeover and handover if you're borrowing a glider, so you don't drop yourself into poo. Ensure that the annual and ARC are in date for the whole of the competition period, and ensure that the insurance is in date for the whole of the competition period. You will also need, oh, you won't be wanting a glider like this, by the way. You want something a bit better for a competition. But you'll also need a crew.
Be a good handicap,
yeah, it would be a good handicap. And of course, if you're flying, say, maybe something like Sants Discus, you might just need one person to drive your car to come and pick you up and to give you a hand, get the wings on and off. But if you're flying an S-25, you might need 2 or 3 people. Okay, or a K-21, you might need 3 or 4 people to get the wings on and off. So you need a decent crew for the glider you've got. The crew is there to look after you, okay, especially when you land out. That's their job. If you don't have any friends, just promise them beer. And a crew meal at some point in the proceedings might go down well as well.
Can I add something there as well?
Yeah, can you?
Just my experience of recent comps is that they realise that getting somebody to crew for you is going to be pretty difficult in this day and age. You know, somebody sat on the ground watching you fly and enjoy yourself. So they set up a mutual retrieve thing, which is generally a sort of WhatsApp group. And when you sign up for that, you're sort of semi-obliged to help out. So if there's a bunch of land outs, if you land back at the airfield, a bunch of WhatsApp comes up and you go out and get somebody. So it's a self-help group. Saves you having to. You still have to do the beer and meal stuff, by the way.
Absolutely, and we're not suggesting that you go to the Ritz for your meal. You know, just stop at the pub on the way back from your field. Will do most people. You'll also need accommodation. Okay? If the competition site's away from your home, you need to think about accommodation. Where will you stay? You're not going to stay in a 5-star hotel, are you? Really, for a competition? I don't know. Some people might. But, you know, it might be a B&B. It might be the camper van. It might be, you know, you've got a caravan and a couple of cars, so you can take the caravan and the trailer. It might be in the bunkhouse, a tent, trailer. Okay, a bivouac. From about 7 onwards, you start to get a bit. It's at the bottom end of the accommodation range. You certainly don't want to be sleeping in the beer tent, and you certainly don't want to be sleeping in the cockpit. You'll also need a tow vehicle, something that's appropriate for the glider trailer, something that's legal for the weight of the glider trailer. You need to check its serviceability before you go and check that electrics are compatible with the trailer itself. There's different types of plugs these days. There's the 7-pin, there's the 13-pin, or 12-pin, or whatever it is. You need to make sure that it's all compatible, and I would suggest that that's maybe not suitable. Why? Doesn't have a tow bar, does it? And again, with the trailer, you need to make sure that the trailer electrics are compatible with your tow vehicle, and don't leave it until the Friday before you go to the comp to check your trailer out. Okay, check that it's serviceable. Okay, if it looks something like that, perhaps it might need a little bit of work on it. Yeah, sure.
Sorry about butting in. Now, this is a serious issue, actually. So I don't know if you saw in the newspapers 2 or 3 weeks ago, a driver has been jailed for driving a trailer which had out-of-condition tyres in it and caused an accident. I don't think it was a fatal accident. It was a serious accident. Was it? Yeah, and he's... But he's been put away for a year. You know, it's not like it's 3 months, 4 years, is it? Yeah. And that purely because he had out-of-condition tyres on his trailer. Serious stuff.
Well, there's a bit more said than that. When the trailer was modified, it was overweight before it was
Okay, but it's still...
Yeah.
The main thing about trailers, let's speak this way.
Yeah.
What in the news? The main thing about trailers is simple things that will get you lots of points is tyres that are not cracked and stressed, and more importantly, not old. You know, 5 years old is a sort of limit on trailer tyres. And the one that gets a lot of people, and you get 3 points for it, is a breakaway cable, secondary means of attachment. Right, if you don't have one of them, you'll get 3 points in your licence and £100 fine. So all that stuff's important. And if you want any trailers fixed, well, Adrian's your man.
Always good to get the plug in, eh? So is your trailer fit for purpose? And how many times have we heard, you know, I went off to the comp and my trailer was, you know, it broke down on the motorway, etc., etc. So the last thing you want is to sort of land out in 1944 and be retrieved in 2023, do you? Anyway, moving on. Recency, we talked about this, or just briefly brushed on the subject at the beginning. It's all important. Okay? If you want to do well in your competition, if you want to stay safe in your competition, okay, fly your glider as much as possible prior to the competition. Okay? There's no way that you're going to go in and do well in a comp cold. So get as much practice in as you can. Fly a Condor 2 tasks out of the site that you're going to. Get yourself familiar with the site and the airspace around about it. It's all important that you can relax as much as you can in the cockpit when you're really there. Use the instruments and charts to ensure your competency. And when was the last time you editored? Oh, make sure your editor current when you turn up. They may well ask for your logbook just to check. Competition handbook. Vital bit of equipment when you're going to fly comps. A, you need to know the rules. But B, if there's a protest, for instance, against you, you need to be able to defend yourself. If you think somebody else has been cheating and you want to lodge a protest, then you need to front up with a tenner, maybe 20 quid these days, and lodge your protest. If you don't know the rules, you'll probably lose your protest money. Okay? So it's worth a good read, and it's on the BGA website. You can find it there quite readily.
Can I say something wrong?
Yeah, sure.
Normally, when you go to competitions, you find that the competition will publish a set of local rules which apply to the airfield, as in frequencies, specific airspace, and letters of agreements. And everything. They are really worth studying because that's the ones that will catch every time.
Absolutely. I'm going to come on to that in a minute, but that's a great point. Well made. Half-mil chart. Okay. Make sure you've got one of the local area. Okay. There's 3 for the UK. Make sure you've got the one that's appropriate to you. Study it well before you get to the competition so that you know the local area. And again, go back and fly your tasks on Condor 2 and use a PDA with the airspace on it. Get yourself familiar with it. So when you get there, you're not struggling to stay out of airspace. That won't do when you're flying down south. We've all got one, but you need another one. Fly your glider again. It comes back to currency and recency. There's no substitute for practice. I'm going to keep rubbing this in. Get to know your instruments intimately. How long does it take you to program a task? What if you come out of morning briefing with a task sheet and as you're just about to get off the stand up from the table and walk away, the comp director says, oh, and by the way, first launch 20 minutes. Not enough. Yeah. Okay. So you need the time to program you need to be able to program your kit in the time given. The alternative is just to pull off the grid and go to the back. Give yourself time. Never ever rush yourself. And can you at least do the simple things in flight whilst keeping a good lookout? Things like changing the McCready setting. Know your instruments. Know them well. Confidence is a big thing in competition flying. Okay? If you don't feel confident, you probably won't do well. But even more so, okay, you may be a danger to yourself or others. So you'll be flying in close proximity to large numbers of gliders. Make sure you're current, okay, so you can cope with large number of gliders round about you. Get plenty of practice in. Practice your thermaling technique before you go. Okay? Practice your navigation skills and make sure you're current on field landings. And Rainer is going to cover that in the next briefing. So when you get to the comp, you'll be doing this sort of thing every morning, getting the wings on, getting out on the airfield and going flying. So the week before the competition, you've got a lot to do. You've got to derig the glider, hopefully after you've flown it that weekend. And then you've got to pack all the other kit that you need. And this is just a big list. So I'm just going to let you read them yourself, and I'm just going to bring them up one at a time. Goes on and on, doesn't it? Some of the stuff you might not need. Like, so if you've got one man tow out kit, you might not need a tow rope. But it's all up there. It's all there as a reminder. There's a lot of stuff to go. So,
Question.
Yes, Rainer, stand by.
Is it not mandatory in Britain to bring your own aero tow rope?
No.
No. Okay.
So, the day before the comp, I presume you're not going to turn up on the morning. So the day before the comp, you're going to turn up. You're going to have to book in when you arrive at the campsite or the competition site. So you've got your personal documents, such as competition license. You've got the aircraft documents that they may ask for to prove that everything is insured, etc. You need to set up your campsite. You need to get the glider parked, maybe rig it and then tie it out overnight. Or if you're going to put the glider back in its trailer every day, just leave it in its trailer for the first night. But when it comes to the practice day, I would recommend that you fly the practice day. Some people don't bother. Some people relax and chill out. I would recommend you at least fly the practice day, certainly if it's your first few competitions, because that way you get to learn about the airfield, you get to fly locally, you get to check out the airspace, you get to check out the local soaring conditions.
Excuse me, Ron, just to some of the regionals that don't have a practice day, but
right, yeah,
always get down there. My advice would be, if you've never flown regionals before, or you're very when you're in a few comps, get down there at least 1 or 2 days early to fly 1 or 2 days ahead of the comp. Then you just get used to the airfield. It de-stresses the landing because you'll be landing with lots of other gliders around you. So it's good to have a good crack at it when there's nobody else landing, very few. And you get used to the local airspace as well. So
absolutely.
Really good thing.
Good point. And make sure your batteries are charged. Okay. Read the local rules. This is what Adrian was on about. Get yourself up to speed with the local rules so that you know frequencies, etc. You know areas to avoid when you're paragliding back, that kind of thing. And check your instruments when you get there. Make sure everything's working. Do that flight. Okay, as Phil was saying. Make sure that you're ready to go on day one. So we're ready to compete. Day one's arrived. Make sure you're well rested. Make sure you're fit to fly. Okay. There's no point staying up until 3 in the morning, drinking with your newfound friends in the beer tent, and then going out and trying to fly the following morning. You probably won't do very well. The crew has jobs to do. Make sure they do them. Prep the glider. Tow the glider out and position it on the grid, and they should launch you when it's time to go. It's up to you to decide when you launch after you've been offered a launch. Okay, so if you're offered a launch, you can take it straight away, or you can say, no, I'm going to pull off the grid and I'm going to launch later on. But it's up to you, the pilot, to decide. The crew will launch you. They should then get the trailer ready just in case. But of course, we're all going to get round, don't we? And then when the glider returns, they retrieve you from the airfield back to your parking place, clean the glider and secure it for the night, either staking it out or putting it back in its trailer. By the way, if you're borrowing somebody else's glider and they say, I want it in the trailer every night, then do so. Okay. And then put the batteries back on charge. Make sure they're ready for the next day. Pilot's job is to attend the briefings, to mark up their maps, to program their instruments. But if you've got a P2 or a crew that's helping, involve them. Make it interesting for them. Okay. Tell them what you're doing. Deal with your personal prep. Make sure you're comfortable in the cockpit, so that you've got all the bits and pieces that you need with you. And sort out your positive mental attitude for getting airborne. Make sure you're in the right frame of mind before you get airborne. Okay. If you've got something bugging you up here, okay, you're not going to be in the right frame of mind to go fly. Certainly not in a competition with 20 or 30 other gliders round about you before the start line opens. Plan your flight tactics and make sure any checklists that you use are complete. Okay, don't just skip over items and say, oh, I'll do without that today. Okay, make sure you complete your checklists, because that way, you know, you're going to perform at your best. And then go and plan the task. Have fun. Book into control with your logger evidence afterwards, and make sure you enjoy the day. Oh, we'll come back to recency again, look. When did you last practice final glide? And are there any competition rules which are different to what you've been practicing? Do you want to come back in amongst this lot and have no idea what you're going to do? Or do you want to come back in amongst this lot, or just ahead of them, or just behind them, or whatever, and know exactly what you're going to do? Okay, think about it. Manage the energy, even if you're in an asteer. You know, manage the energy, and everything will be fine. Think about what you're doing. And if all goes well, you should end up smiling like this chap here, who's just crossed the finish line. It looks a bit lower than it actually is. I was stood on top of the tower at 50 feet when I took that. So it's, but that's the kind of thing that you want, kind of expression you want in your face when you get back. It's not been confirmed yet, but we're hoping this year to send the Percos down to Pocklington with myself and any of you guys who want to come along to occupy the other seats. It will be a training opportunity where we'll get whoever's sat in the other seat doing as much of the flying as possible on the competition. So put the word round, think about it. If you want to go yourself, check in with Martin when he's back off leave and get yourself booked in. And that's pretty much all I've got to say on the matter. Okay, it's not 100% covered, but it's quite a comprehensive briefing, I think. If you've got any questions, now's your time to fire away.
Just going back to towing trailers and tow balls
Yeah.
in the back of your vehicle. I went down to Yorkshire to pick up a trailer and discovered that the tow bar on my truck was about 6 inches too high. So the tail of so I had to go to a garage and get that altered. So just check your towing vehicle is appropriate height for towing a trailer that long. Yeah,
absolutely. And these checks need to be done a month or two in advance, not the week before you go.
Just a question, that horrifying image of 5 or 6 gliders coming in at E&E. What is the process for splitting up and landing safely if you've got that situation? Is there a routine that you follow?
That will depend very much on the competition rules, and we'll probably be briefed on the first day of the comp. It'll be all gliders will land on runway 24. You're approaching from the north, so pull up and go to the left, or as you come through the finish line, then it'll all be left-hand circuits onto this run or whatever.
Just so that you can, just so I can add a bit to that, just so you can practice it. Well, maybe not practice it, but in the comps I've been at, they prefer you to land straight in. There's no pull-ups or going around.
Yeah.
So you just, as Ron said, you manage the energy. And these days, the finish ring is often 3 kilometers, a ring of 3 kilometers radius. That's right, isn't it? A radius. Yeah. So you've done all your mad stuff 3 kilometers away. There's still no pulling up, but that's the deceleration. So you've got 3 kilometers to decelerate or drop energy and land straight in. And if you're in a big clump like that, those 5 gliders, if you're at the front, you just try and stop 2 inches away from the far end, and you don't taxi. You just land straight and you just keep going. Make sure your wheel brake works.
Absolutely.
Thanks. I just wanted to add to that. I was looking around the room to see if Brian was here, but because he was, I think it was year before last at one of the comps, and I happened to be on the pilot safety committee, and Brian, I'm sure you won't mind my mentioning this. He actually got reported for pulling up. In fact, it was, the penalty was dropped because it was, after much analysis, it was agreed that he hadn't, but they were that serious about it. You had to cross the finish line at minimum 400 feet with a 50-foot margin, and if you were below the penalty zone, and if you were below the penalty zone, no finish at all. And if you're coming in at V&E, you're 3 kilometers out at 400 feet, and you've got to get your wheel down, get your air brakes out, get your water ballast dumped, to get your speed under control, and land straight ahead without pulling up at all, which is worth practicing because it's quite difficult to do.
Yeah, I heard about that competition as well, Kate, but that was the pre-Worlds training at Husbos, and it was the person who was directing the competition was proved to be too strict on that rule. The rule is actually up to the finish ring, decided by the height of 300 or 400 feet, depending on the competition, is a constantly descending profile to the finish point. If you're coming across the finish ring at V&E 140, whatever knots your V&E is, that 3 kilometers will disappear very quickly. But you talk to everybody, you talk to director, you talk to control, and you say, I'm high energy, I'm going to go round. Everybody knows you're going round. The people that are lower energy, 60, 70 knots, are creeping in at 300 feet, can land straight ahead. But you're always told in briefing every day where you're going to land and what to do.
Yeah, that's true. Just to comment that they really prefer, as Phil said, people to land straight ahead. They really prefer you to manage your energy. And what we were told at that particular comp is that if you had to turn, you turned first and then pulled up, because what they don't want is, if you've got somebody 50 meters behind you, you don't want to slow down because they'll fly into you.
But you communicate on the radio whenever you hear.
This is just to amplify a point Kate just made. Actually, if you're doing 120 knots in my Ventus, if I move that stick by 1 millimeter, I'm going all over the place, and you kind of get into not PIO, but you can end up doing some pretty bizarre stuff, especially if you're trying to open the brakes, drop as Kate said. I mean, for me, the first thing to do, and I hate to do it, is crack the brakes and just sort of bleed the speed down, and you're opening the brakes at 120 knots. So it's really just stick them up by 1 centimeter sort of thing. And be really careful.
It is worth practicing.
And it's worth practicing that.
I do feel that, forgive me for saying so, that this is getting a bit esoteric, because the thing I'm minded about is the people that we're actually talking to. I mean, there's about 44 people in the group, right? And about half of them are not even silver, and the other half are silver C and above. And I think there's only 1 gold C distance in it. So the sort of, this is all sounding, I'm sort of sitting there thinking, this is actually sounding quite intimidating for a lot of people, because we're talking about, we're making it sound, in my opinion, that it's actually quite difficult. And the fact is, it's not. What it is a great amount of fun, and but the sort of thing that is obvious about it is that it requires quite a bit of preparation and quite a bit of thought. It's not something you go into, you got to plan it, or you cannot plan it and go down like what a lot of people do and just mess it up for the whole week and go away thinking, oh, I think I better do things a bit differently the next time. It is, comps are a great way of learning, but I do think that, there are regional comps, and the comps that I used to go to was the Northerns in Yorkshire. And the reason why I went there is because it was called the Stumblies comp, because everybody there was bloody useless. And I thought, well, if I can win there, then I've got an advantage, right? So, for those of you that are, competition flying is an aspect of cross-country flying, and the rate at which you learn in competitions, because you've got a wide range of people and you learn at a fantastic rate, more so than flying from your own clubs. And I really recommend it. But don't be intimidated by all this technical stuff, because at the end of the day, what you want is a crew, an aeroplane, and you've planned it correctly. And you're going to make mistakes, but that's the whole process.
Absolutely. I'd add into that for maybe your first, second, or maybe even your third competition, the learning curve is so steep that you're not going to do all that well, but you're going to learn so much. It's worthwhile doing. Once you've done 2, 3, 4 comps, you'll be up there, in a decent position, because if you've learned, you will move on and you will progress, and it's worthwhile doing.
Sorry, any other questions? Go on, Andrew. Yeah.
Not so much a question as more a plug for the two-seater competition at Pocklington that I took part in last year with Andy Parish. I had a fabulous time, learned a lot, and I would encourage anybody who was interested to put their name forward, speak to Martin as soon as possible.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Right, well, if there's no other questions, the thing I would like to sort of say is that we have been talking about, competitions, and it may appear that it's a big step to go to a regional competition. And what we do have, is the Interclub League. And now there's the Scottish Interclub League, and there's also the English Interclub League. Now, I'm supposedly the ICL captain, which means that I oversee the Interclub League for Scotland, which means that I don't do anything really. And also, we have a Portmoak Interclub League captain. Tim Martin's Interclub League captain at Aboyne.
Who's our captain?
Say again?
Who's our captain? Are you?
Well, our captain was Alex, and it's now Dougie, right? So we've got 2 competitions this year. We've got one at Feshy. I'll publish the dates in the next couple of days, but I think it's the weekend before the Mayfest, if I remember correctly. It's the 22nd, 23rd. It's around that of April, and then at Aboyne, it's I think around. It's just the week before the longest day, because we want to be at Aboyne, when we've got maximum daylight, and I think that's around the 18th, 19th. But don't quote me on that, because I'll publish that in the next few days. But particularly for Portmoak pilots, Feshy's just a beautiful site, and Aboyne's a lovely site as well. And as a stepping stone for going into competition flying, because the way you do it is, it's usually the Interclub League, then it's a regional, and once you start getting good at regionals, then you go to nationals. That's the sort of stepping stone, basically. Now, I don't know, Dougie's been, progressing over the last few years, and it's just now become the captain for Yes You. Do you want to say a few words? Well, I'll be honest, Dougie. The sort of thing I think is that you're an example of somebody that sort of started out, has made a lot of mistakes, still making them, and all the rest of it, right? And it's just the guy. It's just the guy. It's just the guy to sort of, get it sorted. Go on. You have a word.
What do you want me to say?
Well, whatever, mate.
Right,
Bullshit
okay.
when in doubt. When in doubt.
I'll ramble on a wee bit, right? I've been sloppy shouldered by Ali Maitland at taking this task on of inner club league captain. We've looked at the experiences I've had doing it over the years, and we're going to try and modify things a wee bit, particularly for the novice class. Now, the big boys, the pundits, intermediates, they can look after themselves. They've been there, they've done it, they know what they're doing. The novices is what we're looking at bringing on. And in previous years, you head off to the club league, more in hope and expectation. A lot of times you're doing it yourself. It is quite intimidating. So this year, what I'm proposing to do is to ask for 4 teams. And in the novice class especially, we're looking to have little sub-teams. So each glider has got at least 2 people to crew and to retrieve and just to help out. If one glider goes with 2 pilots, then they could nominate pilots Saturday and Sunday and fly alternate days. The idea of this is so the novices have support from somebody at the same level as them. They can bounce ideas off each other. They can set the glider up. There's no panic, as Ron's alluded to with competition. It's like a mini competition, so there's the same level of preparation required for the inter-club league as it is flying off to a big competition. It's the same amount of preparation. Everything's got to be done the same, the glider, the trailer, and yourself. So that's about it. I'll be asking for 4 teams and basically 4 sub-teams for a novice class.
Okay, good.
You can expand on that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We'll put out some details about that to the club and also to the other clubs as well. I'll put the dates out and we'll obviously elaborate on that in the future.
What I meant to understand is the 4 teams, there will be 4 teams flying at both fishing and avoid, there'll be 2 teams for each.
Yeah, I mean the idea is that basically is to give novice pilots as many opportunities as possible. So basically, we have one glider, possibly 2, going up with, if it's with 2 people per glider, and we swap it around so that people can get as much experience as possible. So it's at a minimum, 1 glider with 2 pilots for Feshi and 1 glider with 2 pilots for a buoy. So, everybody gets a chance, or we try and get the maximum chance. And if people want to do it as well, we can do it for the novice and not for the novice, the intermediate and the pundit class. But I think that we'll look at that. I think that's not particularly important.
The other thing you can add as well, we're not really I've not really looked at provision for taking 2-seater gliders and doing coaching, but anybody want to do 2-seater coaching just does it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, one last point about this competition business and all the rest of it and gaining experience is actually going away on expeditions. And the club in the past has gone to Hasbos. What we're planning on doing this year as well, hopefully, is for the Percos with a suitably qualified instructor going up to a Boyne and Feshi for a weekend, not necessarily for competition flying or anything like that, but just to experience different surroundings, different ways of operating and so on. And we've got plans afoot to do that this year. I will say, plugging it, the Pocklington thing's good. And, if anybody wants to go down to the Hasbos for the Hasbos expedition, going away to other sites is good. And let's be honest about it, thermal soaring down south is better than it is up here. And you'll actually learn a lot much more quickly down south.
Your point about task weeks is good as well, because they're informal. So just the point about the Husbuzz task week, for example, is quite good fun.
Yeah.
It's competitive, but it's fun.
Absolutely.
So you can go through all the same motions you would do in a genuine regionals competition, but a bit more relaxed.
Good. Right, what time is it? It's 3:15. We'll have a 15-minute break, and then Rainer will elaborate on field landings. Excellent. Thanks very much.
Thank you.